Welcome back, everyone. We're doing another Security Plus quiz bank, or practice quiz bank, I should say, and going through 5 questions. We're going to do those 5 more questions. We're going to dissect those questions. We're going to figure out why the answer is the answer, and because that's the best way. I often give a hint for Security Plus before we start this, or for the exam that we're doing a practice exam on. I don't know if I've used this one yet, but skip the performance-based questions at the beginning. Skip the performance-based questions. You usually have, I think I told you last week, we have between 70 and 90 questions. And of those, we usually have anywhere from 2 to 4 performance-based. And performance-based are literally any question that's not in multiple choice. I like to flag those and then just skip them. When you first get into your exam, you're nervous. Even I'm old. I'm old. And I even still get nervous still when I go out and start taking a certification exam, even though I've probably taken, easily a dozen of these things over the years. I still get nervous. Even on Security Plus, believe it or not, which I teach for a living. That is literally something that I do for a couple companies, actually, is teach Security Plus. And so as you're going through this, I would highly recommend that you skip those performance-based questions, get into the multiple choice, let those nerves calm down, and then read the question, and then calm yourself, right? Take a deep breath, realize everything's going to be okay, and you'll be fine. Remember, when we go in to take our Security Plus exam, if we did our due diligence, if we went out and did lots of practice exams and consistently scored above 90% on those practice exams, then going in to take our Security Plus exam is nothing more than a formality. And students usually ask me, they're like, why 90%? Because I'm cheap. I don't know if I've told you this, but I don't work for a living. I go to work because I love to. That's what my wife told me. I don't get paid for that, apparently. She does. She gets paid because she doesn't get to be with me. I think that's how she said it. She said, since I go to work and she's not with me, that she gets the money. I'm not sure exactly how that pans out, but it's worked so far. I mean, I've been married for, almost 20 years now. So far, so good. Why question it at this point? And I'm sure that some of my female students would be nodding their heads right now. They'd be like, it makes sense to me. All right, let's jump into this. You don't need to hear about my life. That's not what you came here for. Let's jump into it. Let's start with an easy one. Which of the following is a common tool used for vulnerability scanning in a network? Which of the following is a common tool used for vulnerability scanning in a network? I feel like we asked this one. Well, we didn't ask it last week, but we talked about it a little bit last week. What do you think? I'm going to give you a second on this one. Not too long, though. I feel like this one's not overly difficult. It is set for easy, right? So which of the following is a common tool used for vulnerability scanning in a network? If you need more time, go ahead and pause it. Pause that video because we're going to go over it. I do want to say before we pause that video, as you're going through these questions, don't use Google. Take your guess at it. We're going to explain it anyway. There's no reason for you to go on Google or in your textbooks. Now, after I'm done explaining it, if something didn't make sense and you need more information, pause the video, jump on YouTube, jump on Google, and figure it out. There's some great instructors out there. I don't teach Security Plus online in any format. That is not what I do. I teach other ones, but I don't teach Security Plus. So we're strictly doing practice exams. So if you're looking content for me, for Security Plus, I'm sorry, I don't do that. There are plenty of ones out there I can recommend, all of which do a fantastic job. I felt like there was enough out there that we didn't need that. But I didn't feel like we had people that were actually talking about the exam, and that's what I'm doing, all right? So question number 1, which of the following is a common tool used for vulnerability scanning in a network? Well, we know it's not Wireshark. Wireshark scans network packets or does packet sniffing, right? And it goes through and it gathers those packets. We call those files PCAP files. And then we go in there and we can look at them. We could use it for a detection methodology if we were doing such cases, for incident response, looking at different logs, that kind of thing. That's what Wireshark does. Definitely not vulnerability scanning. The next one I want to knock off is B, Metasploit. Metasploit is a program, or I should say a framework, the Metasploit framework, on usually Kali Linux. You could do it on other ones. And it does exploitation of vulnerabilities. Can it do some vulnerability scanning? It can, but not what I would consider the primary focus of the tool. It allows us to identify certain specific vulnerabilities And even then, I question whether it does vulnerability scanning. It does scanning. Like I can take maybe something that I got from another tool and then go through Metasploit, and it will identify if there's a specific vulnerability for that software or for that version. But it doesn't really do true vulnerability scanning. It does some vulnerability scanning. All right, so that leaves us C and D. C and D, both of these have the ability to do vulnerability scanning, believe it or not, right? So if you're looking at this, I'll give you a second. If you choose A or B, this is your opportunity to second guess yourself and find something else. Provide that second guess. What do you think? If it had to become between C and D, what's your guess? All right, let's jump into this one. It's not Nmap. It's not Nmap. An Nmap is also known as Network Mapper, and while it can do vulnerability scanning, it does have that capability. You have to download a script for it, and then each script looks for specific vulnerabilities associated with that script. But it's not true vulnerability scanning. It's not like Nessus. Nessus is a program that you could either, they have a free version, and I actually show you how to do that on one of my other YouTube videos, but it will actually go through and scan a network or a set of systems, and it will tell you all the vulnerabilities associated with it that it has mapped out, right? And it has false positives, it has false negatives. I go through all that in my Nessus video, but Nessus would be the correct answer on this one. Nessus is the only true vulnerability scanner of the tools listed. If you got it right, pat yourself on the back. If you got it wrong, that's okay. Remember, we learn from our failures, not from our successes. If you already knew it, you didn't learn anything. Well, you may have. You may not know what Wireshark, but you get my point. You get my point. We learn from our failures, not from our successes. Let's move on. Question number 2, a little bit harder. What is the primary purpose of a SIEM system? This is so important, and I tell students this all the time. You got to know the acronyms. You got to know the acronyms. If you knew the acronym for what a SIEM system is, you know the answer is in the question. It really is. The answer is there, right? So if you know what a SIEM system is and you know the acronym for SIEM, then you know the answer. And that's why those acronyms are so important. I constantly say, if you know acronyms, you know you've got 40% of the CompTIA exams down. Literally just by knowing the acronyms. Because a lot of times what CompTIA will do is they'll ask a question, even if it's not something as point like this, and then they'll provide you these acronyms, and if you know the acronym's name tells you what the answer is. And that's why the acronyms are so important for CompTIA. That's why I say 40% of the exam is answered just by knowing what the acronyms are. All right, I feel like we've given enough time. Let's see if we can't jump into this one. Let's start at the bottom. Conducting penetration tests. No, absolutely not. A SIEM does not conduct a penetration test. It has nothing to do with penetration testing at all. Doesn't have anything, form, or function with penetration testing. So definitely not D. Definitely not D. What about scanning for vulnerabilities? Doesn't really scan for vulnerabilities. We just talked about that. That's either Nessus or OpenVOS. There are some web applications, tools that we can utilize for scanning specific web applications for vulnerabilities, but it's not a SIEM system. Not a SIEM. That leaves A or B, encrypting network traffic or monitoring and analyzing security events. Well, if you knew the acronym, Security Incident Event Manager, that gives it away. It's B. It is definitely B. It definitely doesn't encrypt traffic. What a SIEM system does is it grabs all the logs from all the network devices. Not all of them, right? We don't want every one of them. There is something called log overload, right? But we want the main ones. We want the firewall, the switches, the routers, maybe some server logs in there, right? We want that type of information. We definitely don't want all the clients, right? Because remember, we can overload our SIEM system quite easily if we're not careful, right? If you got 100,000 different clients, we probably don't want all that in our SIEM system. Although it depends on what kind of organization you're in, I suppose, right? But back to my original statement, if you knew the acronym, Security Incident Event Manager, then monitoring and analyzing security events, it's literally in the name, security events, event manager, boom, boom, done, done. That was the answer. The answer is B. If you got it right, again, crisp high five yourself. If not, that's okay. We learned something. That's all we're here for. All right, number 3. In the context of incident response, which step involves identifying and containing a threat? They mark this one as medium. I feel like this one is easy. I feel like it's easy, and I'll tell you why in a minute. This is where one of those things that I always tell my students, if you're not an English speaking native, if English is a second language, first off, let me say mad props to you. because I can barely speak English correctly. I can't imagine being able to speak a foreign language. So if English is your second language, I have mad respect for you, first off, okay? I've tried Spanish, I tried Russian, I tried Italian, I even tried French, and I've realized one thing about myself. I only speak English. I speak English and really bad English. That's the only two languages that I speak. All right. Let's get into this, right? Back to my little statement. I completely forgot, right? If English is your second language, go back when you're taking the CompTIA Security Plus exam and take the exam in your native language if you can. I think they have like 20 different languages you could take it in, something ridiculous like that. And so take it in your native language if possible. All right. In the context of incident response, which step involves identifying and containing the threat? Well, I think we know it's not the recovery phase, right? Recovery phase would be to put everything back the way it was before the attack occurred, before the incident occurred. That would be the recovery phase. And I think it's not the lessons learned phase. Lessons learned phase is where after everything's said and done, we come back together as a team and we talk about it and we find out what could we have done better. What tool could have helped us out? What could we have installed or provided in our systems to not only prevent the attack, but gotten us to the recovery phase quicker? That's where lessons learned come into play. That's really just a conference. And we want it to be non-biased, right? We want everybody to be involved because you'd be surprised. I think one time I did a lessons learned with a group, and we had a brand new person on our team. Brand new. Didn't even have 3 weeks of experience with it, but he got put into the fire. And he came up with a really good idea that all of us that had like 10 or 15 years, our eyes just glazed over. We're like, why didn't we think about that? Because sometimes having a different perspective on something provides us guidance. And that's key, right? So if you're brand new and you go into a company and they're doing a lessons learned, feel free to speak up. We encourage that. At least I did. All right. All right, that leaves the eradication and containment. Well, it's in the name. It's containment. It's containment. We're containing it. Eradication would be removing it from the system, eradicating the threat. That would be that. Containment is containing the threat. So we would contain it after we identify it. So identify, contain, eradicate. Eradicate is after containment. Remember, we want to stop the incident from going any further. We want to spread it ultimately. That's our goal, and that's where it comes into place. For your Security Plus, this is MITRE. This is Cyber Kill Chain. This is those frameworks that you probably thought were incredibly boring that you didn't want to learn. Yeah, that's all this right here. And I guarantee there are questions on Security Plus that deal with those frameworks that you don't like because they're boring. I guarantee it. All right. There it is. There's containment. All right. Question number 4. What security protocol is used to protect the confidentiality of data in transit on wireless networks? Now this one's tricky. I know it says it's easy. I would notch this up from easy to medium. That's me. I would do that, right? But what do you think? I'll give you a couple seconds, right? We have 4 acronyms there, which are fantastic. I know that we love our acronyms. Okay. What do you think? What security protocol is used to protect the confidentiality of data in transit on a wireless network, specifically on a wireless network? It calls for it. You got to make sure you read the question. Make sure when you're going through this and you're taking your CompTIA Security Plus exam, a lot of us, we read the question and we try to get through it so quickly, right? Because I tell you, 30 to 45 seconds. And you read through the question as quick as possible. You read through the answers and then you answer it. Make sure, I always like to read the last sentence of a question, because a lot of the questions on Security Plus, they're not just cut and dry like this. A lot of them provide a lot of extra details that really don't need to be there, but they are. So make sure that you're not following the story. Make sure you're following the question. And that's why we do that. All right. All right, let's jump into this one. What security protocol is used to protect the confidentiality of data in transit on a wireless network? Well, I think we can get rid of SSL, right? I think that we can get rid of SSL, secure socket layer. I think what we know, not only is this outdated, we also know, because it was replaced by TLS, we also know that it has nothing to do with wireless, specifically with wireless. It has to do with HTTP, but it's even outdated. We don't even use SSL anymore. We use TLS. So definitely not SSL. That leaves WEP, WPA, and WPA2. And I feel like we can get rid of WEP. I feel like we can, well, I'd get rid of WPA. How my mind would work it is I'd get rid of WPA. And the reason I say that is because most students are probably looking at this and they're like, okay, well, WPA2 is definitely better than WPA, so let's get rid of WPA. And that would be correct. And then I feel like students would look at A and they'd look at C and they'd be like, which one should I pick? Which one? Well, it is WPA2. And you probably got that because I literally said, let's get rid of WPA2, right? So anyway, it's going to be WPA2. A WPA2, the only thing stronger right now is WPA3. It is important for you to understand the hierarchy, right? We not only want to know the best, we want to know the second best. Because a lot of times what CompTIA loves to do, let me show you that answer while I'm talking. A lot of what CompTIA loves to do is they like to go through and remove the best answer. They love to do that. And then you're stuck with the second best answer. And a lot of students, they study for the best. They don't study for the second best. And that's where CompTIA gets you. So make sure that you understand the hierarchy. Make sure you understand, okay, this is the best, but if that's not there, then it must be this. If you can do that, you'll be successful on Security Plus. That and acronyms. Those are the two big ones, all right? All right, last question for the night. What type of malware is designed to provide unauthorized access and control of a compromised computer? And I would rate this one as hard. And the reason I rate this one as hard is because the best answer is not there. The best answer is not there, which means you must go with a different answer. And again, I just was talking about this. This is something that CompTIA normally does to screw with you, right? So let's take a second. I would definitely route this as hard. What do you think? What do you think? All right, well, if you need extra time, go ahead and pause the video. Let's get on this one. I think we can safely remove ransomware. I feel like there's no indication of encryption on here. There's nothing that says paying a ransom or paying a fee to have our system unlocked. I think ransomware is completely out of the question. Can't be ransomware. I think we can get rid of adware too. Adware would be those nasty ads that pop up all over our computer. It used to be very prolific in the late 90s, early 2000s, where we used to see pop-up ads just spawn. I remember one time I was looking at a client's computer, and they literally had 100 different pop-up ads every time to open up a browser. It was ridiculous. And I was like, dude, here, let me install an ad blocker for you. And it would stop that mess, right? That leaves spyware and a rootkit. Two very different types of malware. But which one is going to provide unauthorized access? Well, it's not going to be spyware. Spyware is literally spying on your system, but it doesn't interact with it. It just looks at what's going on in your system. That's its goal. Its goal is to spy on you. That's why it's called spyware. The best answer would have been a RAT, right? Remote Access Trojan. That's not on there. That wasn't on there. Neither was some of the other, I feel like, some of the other malwares that might be better. But in this particular case, rootkit is the only one that makes sense. Rootkit falls underneath the operating system, and so it's incredibly hard to detect. It definitely compromises a computer and allows somebody to gain unauthorized access to the system. So rootkit would be the correct answer on this one. Very hard to pull off a rootkit attack, but it does happen. Very hard to not only pull off, very hard to detect a rootkit as well. Those are going to be our answer for today. I hope you found that helpful. I hope this 5 questions, you went through this and you found it to be educational. I hope as you're studying for your Security Plus exam, you remember these questions as you're going forward. If you found it educational, if you found it to be helpful in your Security Plus, please hit that like, subscribe, and of course that bell icon for notifications. I would appreciate it. Until next time, my name's Dr. K. We'll see you around.